Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com.
Stay that way because I like it like that.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Larry Yates' Is Show. Welcome to the North, South, East, and West. Larry Yates' Is Show travels around the world. This is Carolyn Wilkins, guest but frequent co-host of this wonderful program. And we do a shout out again to the magnificent, multi-talented Larry Yates. Give him an applause. So he's traveling. We have a delayed response, but that's not unusual. We want to say hello to all of those who are listening. We know that the weather's hot around the country. I've been talking to people all over the country in these past few weeks. And in fact, I spoke to someone who had been in the New York City area, and they said it was hot, but they didn't realize how hot it was until it got more humid. And then when it got humid, they really understood what the difference was with the East Coast weather and the West Coast weather. So it's hot everywhere you look. So I hope everyone is doing whatever they need to do to cool down, but to take advantage of the wondrous weather. We've been doing a whole series around how did we get here, and focusing on lots of different situations, from the LGBTQ community to civility, liberty. We've talked about morality. And as I was watching the news this past week, I decided that I was going to take a brief break and have a conversation about what is good in the world. What is happening in the world that is good and exciting? So we're going to spend most of our time for this program having a smile and looking at what is working, what's important. But I can't begin the program without having a brief moment in looking at what's going on in the White House and around the White House. As you all know, this is a week that 45 is on the road. He's out of the country, and he's going to one of the summits, an economic summit. The unfortunate part is that he's gone as demander-in-chief. He is demanding that the European nations invest more in NATO. He's demanding that other people put a higher percentage in, and that the U.S. is paying too much of its share. And while I don't necessarily disagree with the numbers, everything is attitude, everything is approach, and everything is relationship. And on those three areas, I believe 45 gets an F, because his approach in the world of diplomacy is one of a bull in a china shop or a bully on the corner. And I'm not trying to be negative about him as a person. It's just the policies and the approach that are very difficult to watch in what's going on now. And these are our allies, people who not only fought with us during 9/11, they sent troops in. They sent troops all over the world to support engagements that the United States has had. We supported them in World War II. But these countries have really had a more civil connection with the United States. And they were used to having some sort of diplomatic conversation and engagement rather than being talked down to. So when I speak to people and I coach them and I speak to business owners, there's nothing more important than relationship. In fact, I had an experience these last few weeks of purchasing a car. And one dealership I went to about 4 in the last week or so. And one of them I went to was the typical, let me shake your hand and sit down and what are you buying and how can I convince you to buy it? Another experience was a large organization that had a whole lot full of cars, and they also had a return policy. And I wound up finding the same model year, the same mileage, same color in 2 different locations. And so the choice was really mine. I went to one location, and it was a dealership which set itself up as one being customer service. And the car looked beautiful. It was everything I wanted. They had put new tires on, done all sorts of things. But what was missing was a backup camera. And I'm buying a used car, so I wanted to have a backup camera. And this particular car did not have one. A car at another dealership had the backup, but their attitude was less than cordial. And I wound up getting the one with the backup camera just because that's what I wanted. But quite honestly, I left the transaction with a less than pleasant taste in my mouth. And I left saying, I really wish the other place had the product. Have you ever had that happen to you? That you've gone to 2 stores, you could buy something in one of 2 locations, and you just felt better in another location. That's what customer service is all about. That's what relationship is all about. I will give you the quick version of the story. I left with the car, still thinking I wish I had gone to another place. And 2 days later, I got an email that said there's a new car available. And even though I had purchased one, I said, well, let me look. And it was at a similar dealership as the one that I really wanted to get it from. It was 3 model years newer and 10,000 miles less. And I said, you got a deal. So I wouldn't have even paid attention if I had been extremely satisfied with the service of where I went. The reason I'm sharing this story is talking about relationship. I spent many years encouraging salespeople, engineers, operations people, billing people to make sure they treat people with courtesy, dignity, and respect. And as a result, we created closer and stronger relationships with everyone we worked with, as well as within the organization. It's no different in our government. Everything is about relationship. So I'm concerned, as well as the summit members are concerned, that relationships are falling apart. So call in, send us notes about what you're thinking about when our presidency is representing another level of diplomacy. The other thing that's come on the news recently is about the Supreme Court nominee. And there's been a lot of interest after he was nominated and gave his acceptance speech for the nomination. So we have a few weeks or a few months to see whether it's going to go through. If you listen to what he said in his acceptance, it actually sounds like a pretty decent guy. He loves his children. He doesn't beat his wife. He doesn't beat his dog. However, and he went to school. His mother's a teacher. He went to public schools. And he also clerked for Justice Stevenson. So if I were to just hear that part, I'd say, oh, give him a chance. But I also know the opinions he's written, what he has said about the Constitution and the role of the Supreme Court. So let's proceed with caution, and I hope that our democratic process is able to slow down what's going on. So I said I was going to switch the gears, and we're going to switch them right now in talking about good news. So the reason that I made this shift, I was watching some crazy TV last night, and I wound up coming across a new program. Well, it was new for me, called Gordon Ramsay's Hell on Wheels. And it's a program, a TV program. Gordon Ramsay is a wonderful restaurateur and chef, and he's got lots of restaurants. He's all over the world. But he has this new program where he takes a big rig truck that has a full kitchen in the truck. And he's going to restaurants around the country, and it's called Hell on Wheels. And he's doing something in 24 hours. Can you imagine having a business and have Gordon Ramsay come into your business and say, we're going to switch things over? Well, I wound up watching it because he was at a restaurant in a little city in Mississippi called Greenville, Mississippi, which I've actually been to. I don't think I went to that particular restaurant, but I have driven through Greenville and stopped there. I probably went to the Waffle House, which is one of the major restaurants throughout the South. What was intriguing about the show is they show what it looks like, what they're serving. And this restaurant had been in business for about 50 years. And the chef there had been the chef for over 30 years. But when they sat down and went in disguise, it was like undercover. So Gordon Ramsay went, and about 5 of his people sat down at the restaurant. And what they found was poor quality food, a dirty kitchen, a real dirty kitchen with months of grease stuck on things, rotting food in storage, frozen things left together with raw meat, violating many codes. And those were issues when he came in the door. In addition, the new owners of the place have been losing money and actually had put their house up, used the equity in their house to keep working with this person. It was kind of funny watching it because I see how quick Gordon Ramsay can get to the point. But the reason this is good news is because they took it upon themselves to go to a restaurant and make a difference in the lives of about 20 people. Because when you look at a restaurant, it's not just the owner, it's not just the chef, but there are maybe 10 other people cooking, there are people washing dishes, there are waiters and waitresses, and people who are bussing. Lots of things go on in a restaurant. And to see what happened to this restaurant, they wound up tearing out the appliances, they tore out the chairs, gave them new chairs, new furniture, put wallpaper up, new lighting. It was amazing what they were able to do to turn over the look and feel. But the most important thing they did was they got the cooking handle. One of the issues in the restaurant is they had 5 microwave ovens in the restaurant. So instead of them cooking, they were taking things that had been cooked before and frozen and heating them in the microwave. So I can do that at home. So why would I go out and pay for a meal that's just been microwaved? So that wasn't a good thing. They wound up with new recipes, a new head chef. Was one of the first times I've ever seen this happen, that a gentleman from the South, a white gentleman from the South who had been the chef for 32 years, was replaced by a black woman who started as a dishwasher and has worked her way through all the jobs pretty much in the restaurant. But she had such interest and energy and excitement about learning new recipes that they brought to the restaurant that her enthusiasm made all the difference in the world, as well as the quality of the food that she was doing. So the guy who had been the chief chef, head chef, had a lack of enthusiasm. He was very angry, actually, that he was sought out and actually caught on camera. So I applaud what this show is doing. It's making a difference in the lives of many people in a small town. And my thumbs are up to Gordon Ramsay. The other show I watched last night, and that made me smile. The other show I watched last night was America's Got Talent. And I don't actually even like the show, but I caught it at a moment that was so interesting. There was a young girl who was singing, and she was only 13 years old. And what was intriguing is that she looked like a little skinny girl, 13, that's getting ready to sing, long hair. You could not tell at all the voice that she had. She started singing, and she actually sounded like an old talent that you have to be over 30 to know, but Janis Joplin, who was a phenomenal singer from many years ago, discovered by Clive Davis. And she did an amazing, amazing job. But in addition to this young singer who was 13, they were able to, in these auditions, they chose 5 people who went ahead to the live show. So this young girl was one. There was another young singer who was given the opportunity, and she's from a town in California. There was also a young man who's a comedian with Tourette's syndrome, and he was really funny. And they gave him that brass star. And they also had an acrobatic dancing group. So I sat there and literally smiled throughout the program. And from watching that, as well as Gordon Ramsay, I said, you know something? I got to talk about some good news, because there is good news, and we actually need a break to fill our souls, to fill our thoughts with what is right in the world. So I'm going to talk about a few things that are right in addition to what was on TV. We're all happy to know that with the children at the borders, there are still 3,000 children that were separated, but they are slowly but surely connecting fathers and mothers with their young children. We saw recently on the news where some were connected. One was a 10-year-old, another was a 3-year-old little boy. And his father was in tears, of course, and the young boy was in tears. And they had been separated for, I think, 60 days. And the father asked the young boy, "Are you upset with me?" And through the tears, he said yes. And they both cried. But they both cried tears of joy that they were together again. So I encourage us all to keep doing whatever we do, to write letters, to call our senators and Congress people, to be sure that we reconnect our children, the children of those who have come to the borders, with the families. Many of the families have been detained. Some of the families, adults, have been sent back to their countries. But it is our responsibility in America to bring the children back with their families. So the good news is it's happening. They're actually showing some of the reunions, and that's a good thing. So keep looking for those, and you're also able to find organizations that are supporting it, whether they need legal representation, clothing, or money for transportation. I encourage you all to find a way to donate for some of these causes, because they really will make a difference in the lives of children. Another great story that many people have been watching for the last 12 days are the young boys who were in a flooded cave in Thailand. I remember when I first looked at this story, and my first question is, why the heck were you in the tunnel? And tunnels are to be looked at. Tunnels for young boys are opportunities for adventure. Now, it's clear to me that even though there were signs that said do not enter, that did not stop them, and it also doesn't make a difference of how they got in there. They wound up surviving. This is a really miraculous story that puts a smile on my face, and I know can make a difference in your life. Because if you watch it at the beginning, they kept saying that they couldn't possibly survive more than a week. They couldn't survive more than 4 days for some. And this has been 17 days that they were underground. They had very little to eat and drink. In fact, what they were doing was taking the water that was dripping from the top of the cave. And if you remember your science, there's stalactites and stalagmites, and the water was coming down from the ice, and that's what they used to keep themselves liquefied. They didn't have much food, so they were eating very little, only for the first 3 days. So here are these young boys from age 13 to 17, and they've all survived, as well as the coach. So I believe all the prayers have been answered. The children are all in the hospital right now under observation. The parents are all with them. And another part of good news is one of the airlines in their country has agreed to fly all of the responders back for free. So if you look, you can find good news. That's another good news story. I hope you're smiling the way I am. I'm going to move now to sports. I don't always pay attention to sports, but there were 2 stories in the news this week that were actually a lot of fun. The 2018 World Cup is going on right now. The semifinal game was between England and Croatia. And of course, all bets were that England would crush Croatia. However, that was not the story that happened, and Croatia wound up being a giant killer. They beat England in overtime. England was really hoping to win because their last win was way back in 1966. So this was an amazing run. Croatia, many of you may not even know where Croatia is. The only reason I knew before the last few days is because a friend of my children was from Croatia, and I looked it up, and it's a European country near Italy. And it's a small country with only 4 million people in the entire country, 3 to 4 million in the entire country. So it's a big deal for Croatia to be in the finals. So it's very exciting. Those of you who are soccer fans, I know you are going to be watching over this weekend. The other news, I'm going to switch from soccer to basketball. Because I live in LA, this news has taken front page for a couple of days. The mighty LeBron James has signed with the LA Lakers. You want to give a round of applause for that. Now, I don't always go to the games. The tickets have been expensive, and I have a feeling they're going to go up. The Lakers have not been the team that they used to be, but there is great potential of what LeBron James is going to bring. In fact, there was such excitement about him coming that people are looking online for tickets already. They've had press conferences. And just yesterday, in the city, near a city that I live in, they were giving free pizza. LeBron James was supposed to be giving free pizza, and they were expecting him to show. And there was a line of people more than a mile long waiting for pizza and for him to show up. So if that's any indication of the interest in what's going on with the LA Lakers, I can't wait until the season starts to see the craziness and excitement. Again, good news, something to smile about, something to take our attention from some of the political situations that have made us wonder about dignity, civility, and morality. Going to take a break for a few minutes, and we'll come back with a little more good news around the world. This is the Larry Yates Is His Show, Reverend Carolyn Wilkins, and we'll be back shortly.
My soul, let me free out of my breath. Let me live, let me love, let me love. Let me see out of my breath. Let me see out of my breath. Let me oh, let me love. Out of my eyes, let me see. Out of my soul, let me out of my breath. Let me sing, let me laugh, la 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 la. God of my soul,
let me free,
God of my breath,
let me live, let me die, let me
God
love,
of my eyes,
let me see,
God of my soul,
let me free,
God of my breath,
let me live,
yeah.
let me
God
love,
of my eyes,
let me see,
God of my soul,
let me
God of my breath,
live,
yeah.
let me lie, let me
God
love,
of my eyes,
let me see,
God of my soul, God of my breath,
let me live,
let me
la 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 la.
God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, let me, God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, let me, God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, let me, God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, let me, oh, God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, let me, oh, God of my eyes, God of my soul, let me, God of my breath, let me, God of my eyes, God of my soul, God of my breath, let me, la 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 God of my eyes, let me, God of my soul, let me, God of my breath, let me live, let me laugh, let me laugh. God of my eyes, let me, God of my soul, let me, God of my breath, let me live, let me love, let me laugh. God of my eyes, let me, God of my soul, let me, God of my breath, let me live, let me laugh, let me, God of my eyes, let me, God of my soul, let me, God of my breath, let me, la 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 la
Hello, and welcome back to the Larry Yates' Is Show. Larry Yates is not with us today, but we send him greetings. This is Reverend Carolyn Wilkins, Rev C, at your service. And we're returning to a show today entitled Good News. We looked at some stories already that are happening in sports. other stories that are happening in different parts of the country. We talked a little bit about Gordon Ramsay and his redoing a restaurant in Greenville, Mississippi. And we also talked about one of the shows of talent. You've Got Talent. And all of them have made me smile because it's amazing how talented people are. The young people they had on the program last night were really quite astounding. There was one acrobatic dance group, a good 30 children on the stage, and they were dancing, jumping, leaping, and they did a phenomenal job. So a lot of people say that television doesn't have anything good, but there is, if you look right. You got to do some channel searching sometimes, and you'll find things that make a difference in your life. We're going to look at some things happening in the world that you actually have to really look for because they're not in our regular news. The first thing I want to talk about is women in Saudi Arabia. Last week, I mentioned that women are now driving. It's the first time in their history that women have been given permission to drive. And that's not the end of the story. The rest of the story includes the fact that they actually have a female race driver, several race drivers who were able to drive this last week as part of this historic time in Saudi Arabia. So the liberation of women is different in different parts of the world. In some parts of the world, just having a job that a woman can have outside of the home is a big deal. In Saudi Arabia, this is a country that has very strict rules based on religion as well as sex. And for them to make a change, I salute what they're doing. And we don't really talk about it in our news coverage here. We've had some conversation, but on the Larry Yates' show, we're going to share with you what is good and fine and the best. So here is a race car driver who's been given permission to do the work that she loves. And at the same time, there are women who are able to drive just to go to the store, to take their children to school. Their ideals and their benefits and capabilities that Americans have had for many, many years. So it's really amazing to see this change happen around the world. And this is the last country, I believe, that is being affected by the ability to drive. So we have some freedom here, and I'm glad to see that happen. The next story that I was excited to see was headlined, "Fishermen in India collect plastic bottles and make a change in the lives of the villagers." And many of the fishermen that you hear about around the world are telling us that the debris that we have of throwing bottles out, throwing plastic from America all over the world, that what is happening is that fishermen are in a lot of trouble because the bottles get caught up in the nets. Some of the animals are eating them. The birds and the fowl are eating some of this plastic material, It's getting in the digestive systems of some people. But the good news is that one group of fishermen decided, rather than they were taking the plastic bottles away as trash, but they decided to shift some of their business and have a group, instead of just fishing, that they would do a recycling program. So they started collecting bottles, and as other fishermen brought bottles in, they were able to start getting some money that they could then reinvest back into their town. And it's wound up being such an important part of the process of creating a recycling plant with all of the plastic garbage that's coming their way, that they are able to work with their village to improve the life of the village. And they got a double hit of goodness, because in addition to the men being able to collect the things, the Department of Women's Development in India was able to invest some money with the women, and the women are now running the recycling program. So you have a win-win situation. The fishermen are cleaning up the ocean. They are bringing the product in, and the women are moving ahead to run the business. And as a result, that particular village is doing so much better. They're becoming more self-sufficient and getting rid of the trash at the same time. That's a 3-smile story. There's another story that I read about, and I haven't been able to recreate it, but it's about something really great, that there are several countries that have gotten together working around cancer. And one of the more progressive countries is allowing free cancer treatment in their health care. And I'm going to look more into that so I can have more news for you. But it just tells you that in different parts of the world, we're at different parts of understanding, of development and achievement. And we're still fighting here in America about health care, Obamacare, and it seems to be an issue of Republicans versus Democrats. But in other parts of the country, they're moving ahead with recognizing that health care is an important part of what is happening. And I see that we have an update that it's Turkey that is providing free cancer treatment for their citizens. So what is so amazing is that's something that I wish had been on the front of the news of local papers, because it's setting a precedent of good. And what Turkey is doing, even though there's some policies that we may disagree with, this is a policy that we can follow. So I am thumbs up for Turkey and the work they're doing in the world. And my last story is kind of a fun story. And I was looking through a lot of things that we are celebrating. And this is a story about cell phones and young people. I know when I go out, no matter what city I'm in, young people are all on cell phones with headphones, and they don't necessarily talk to each other. They walk in groups together, but they're not necessarily talking. And there is a middle school in France that decided to have an experiment. And they banned the use of cell phones for all the children in and around the school and in the city. Now, you would think that there would be very loud protests and very high level of dissatisfaction. But what they found after 3 years was that the students were happier. They were able to do better in their homework assignments. They came back and said that they had better relationships with their parents, better relationships with their siblings, and that they were able to listen to their teachers better. They started listening to other people, including their friends. So this was an experiment to see what difference would it make if we did not have cell phones at our disposal 24/7. And this little town in France has done a real good scientific experience because they have the data to go with it, and hopefully they'll be able to share it with other parts of the world. What it showed me is that we can work together across generations to up-level the amount of communication, interaction, and respect we have for each other. Even though technology gives us the opportunity for our full independence, for listening to whatever music we want to listen to choose the songs, the articles, the videos that we want to watch. It also creates a sense of separation, and there's not a common ground in which we stand. So I encourage parents to consider holding off with what we're doing with our young people and give them some boundaries. I know that parents and grandparents are providing cell phones even earlier. I've seen children as young as 4 and 5 with their own cell phone. And there's really nothing that a 4 or 5-year-old needs a cell phone for that works. Now, I've seen those that are play or they may have games on them. But I encourage you to think about it. It's not something that children have to have. It's something that is an opportunity for them to learn technology. Sometimes it's helpful to parents. I've done some babysitting, so I know that something that will make them quiet and attentive is good. But this is a great story that says young people don't have to be tied to a telephone, and that it actually improves their learning skills, it improves their scores at school, and it also improves their friendships outside of school. So I hope you've had a chance to enjoy our stories today. I know how important it is to be socially active, to be socially conscious, to understand the challenges of diplomacy and citizenship. But sometimes we just have to laugh. Sometimes we just have to sit back, enjoy the sun, have a big glass of lemonade or a plate full of cool, fresh fruit, and smile. Allow nature to fill our hearts as we look at the flowers and the grass and the trees, the beautiful waves that come forth as we go to the beach, and to just honor all the things in nature that bring us light and delight. So as we sign off, I ask you to find a way to make a difference, to bring a smile to someone's face or a smile to your own face, because sometimes Just you smiling at someone will cause them to smile back. I hope you've enjoyed our step away from how did we get here to I'm glad we're here, the good news segment. And as we close our program, I send joy, peace, and love to all our listeners. This is Reverend Carolyn Wilkins for Larry Yates and the Larry Yates is His Show, saying peace, love, and possibility.